Hey guys, it's Greeny here. Here's a really quick tutorial slash informational video on what a risk to reward ratio is when you're trading on leverage or when you're just trading in general. Essentially, it's just a term used by traders and investors to manage their capital compared to their risk. So in other words, how much profit can you likely take from this particular trade and how much could you potentially lose from this particular trade? And the way that works is using the tool. So if you just watch my Fibonacci video that I just showed you before, but your risk to reward ratio can be calculated using this tool over on the side. So if I click that, okay, it's going to pop up in a moment's time. So like I showed you in the video, we had higher lows here after price moved up, created a range, okay, and it always loves to come back to this golden ratio, like I showed you in that Fibonacci tutorial. So for me, I would have been entering that ratio for a potential long. So my highest entry would have been about there at 62,800, and then my lowest entry would have been about probably at 62,760. So between that range, you could likely say that I would have had a DCA at the top, a DCA in the middle, and a DCA down the bottom. So in other words, I would have had 3 entries in that zone, and then I would have had my stop loss below this previous level here, which is at 62,650. So to make sure that my stop loss was easily below there, so that if price was to actually move below these 2 previous lows, then that's likely a change of trend from bullish to bearish. So that is a way that I can make sure my stop loss is there. Now, obviously, my first TP would have been at the top of this range. Like I showed you in that video, price always loves to bounce from the 0.5 to 0.618 range back to the top of the initial part. So as you can see here, the ratio of that trade would have been a 2.61 ratio compared to other trades that you can take. So in other words, that's a really good ratio because it's above 2 to 1 risk. So for me, to make sure that I'm trading essentially a good ratio is you want to have it above or as close as possible to 2, okay? Because anything below that means that your stop loss is probably closer than where your profit is currently being placed. So in other words, if I was to move it down to here and we're only targeting this top of this previous price here, as you can see here, it's only a 1.5. So in other words, if I look at this, it's only slightly better than if I take this trade. So in other words, if my trade was to stop out. So in other words, it's better to always make sure that you're having a conviction trade. And that's why trading reversals is often very good because price doesn't often come back down there unless we are on a very high time frame and it does want to retest those sort of levels. So for me, this would have been a really nice 2.6 ratio trade here. Obviously, we would have set this second Fibonacci level, which I showed you in the video as well before, as the next level. So that's a 4.36, and then at the top of this level, which it did hit from this reversal, this double bottom here, and this bullish divergence down the bottom, we saw a ratio of 5.6. So that's a crazy good return for your stop loss being just below this range here. So that's why I always stress patience in the Discord, guys, because we want price to respect levels that we want to trade, okay? You don't want to be trading in ranges like this where it's in no man's land. So that's why I always say be patient, wait for it to come to us, and from there we can really make some smarter, more decisive sort of decisions and trades, guys. So if you managed to catch that all the way to the top, that's a 2% move on a 15-minute time frame, which is at 20x leverage, that's a 80% move. So it can be really lucrative. You can use this for swing trading, you can use it for scalp trading here. I'd suggest learning on something like a 15-minute or an hourly or a 4-hourly paper trading, and then once you've really started to learn it, like Aussie and like Sexy and other people in the group who call for us, essentially you can really start putting it to practice on here. But that's essentially what your risk to reward ratio is. By clicking this button over on the side, entering the trade here, we would have DCA'd probably in the middle. I would have had my stop loss down below this previous price action. I would have had my first TP here, and that's a really nice 2.7 risk to reward ratio.